What's going on, y'all?
Hey.
I'm Kyle Alexander.
And I'm Michelle. And
this is
the KM Book
KM Book Club. What up?
So, like we told you guys in the last episode, we are reviewing Unqualified
by the homie
Stephen Furtick.
What up?
So, let's go ahead and dive in. Oh, wait, we can't go into all that. Hold on, for the new viewers. What we're doing right here, right now, is actually reviewing the books that we've read for the year 2017. And we're letting you guys know what we liked, what we didn't like, stuff that stuck out to us,
right,
and just pretty much give you a review of what we read. So you can read it too, or not read it, or get the Spark Notes. We like Spark Notes for YouTube.
And this is episode 5. So if this is the first episode you're watching, scroll back some and just watch the whole playlist.
We got playlists?
Season. Watch the whole season.
We got playlists.
Season.
Playlist.
Early part of the season.
PSA.
Oh, wait. This is not like dating or relationship advice at all. Mm-hmm. All we're doing is sharing everything that we've learned from these books with you and hoping it can help you like it helped us.
Let's dive on in. Are we giving them a rating system?
We already know it.
1 is what?
1 is dry.
2 is what?
Barely.
Burly.
3
Struggle.
Is basic cable.
Number 4 being?
4 is lucked up.
And number 5?
Here you go. Number 5 is?
Change your life! And that's pretty self-explanatory. So let's now dive in, because seriously, I'm kind of excited to get into this one. Unqualified is a book written by Stephen Furtick. Stephen Furtick has a church out in North Carolina.
He's the pastor of Elevation Church. Elevation
Church. So if you've heard of Elevation Worship, that's how they be getting down every Sunday.
Or you watched him on YouTube. I'm sure everybody has seen Stephen Furtick by this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Dope.
Going hard.
His boy.
It's the homie.
All day. Let us tell you why we chose this book.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Stephen Furtick had a sermon where he was talking about a book he was writing, and he talked about, he was like coming up, I guess this is just like his come up or whatever, into all that God is doing in his life now. And he said there was a pastor on TV, and the pastor is like a well-known pastor. He didn't name him because he wasn't trying to be petty. I might have named him. I'd have been like, yeah, and Pastor
J.R. Stakes. No, I'm playing.
Is that your fake teeth? Yeah. So Pastor J.R. Stakes from down the street said he ain't like the last 3 sermons I did. What up?
Psych.
Where your ties at? Where your offering at? That's like the Boondock. Where your Capri Pants?
Stop.
You don't remember that?
No.
Whatever. Shout out to my homie James Daniels. He knows that. Don't judge me. Stephen Furtick was talking about this pastor. He pretty much shaded him on TV, and he was like, oh, this person. He was naming different ministers and talking about how great they were, and he didn't know Stephen Furtick at all. So when he got to Stephen Furtick, he was like, Stephen Furtick, unqualified.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a sentence, like, you don't even know me. How are you coming for me?
Right.
And so that's why he titled the book that, and talked about, like, this pastor didn't know him from a can of paint, but that's kind of how he came up with the title of the book, based on that pastor judging him the way he did without knowing him at all, and like how people do that in life. So yeah.
Okay. For Unqualified, for me, I chose this book because there was actually I don't know if you guys have ever done the Bible plans on the Bible app. You know, the one with the brown Bible on it. I think it actually says Holy Bible. So
you saves, huh?
What, the Bible app?
Save.
Okay. So on the Bible app, there are actually Bible plans that you can go through. That's like, they're almost like daily devotions, stuff that you can read. It'll give you the scriptures. Well, there was one on there that was called Crash the Chatterbox. Crash the Chatterbox was pretty much for people who needed to work on or focus on putting away like the voices in your head. So the negative voices, the negative thinking, and that was something that I was struggling with and still do from time to time.
Okay.
So that's the reason why I did that plan, and lo and behold, the person who created that plan was Stephen Furtick. So then when Kyle was telling me about, I actually found out about Stephen Furtick through Kyle. So, of course, I was like, okay, let me listen to some of his teachings.
Hey.
Let me see what he's talking about.
Just trying to put you on.
He's dope. So when we saw Unqualified, it was definitely like something that we had to read, something that we had to pick up. Expectations versus reality. And my expectation for it wasn't so much coming from Stephen Furtick, because again, I was just finding out about Stephen Furtick through Kyle. But my expectation for the substance of the book was big. And I told you guys, like, negative thoughts, negative thinking, negative words was definitely something that I was working on. So hearing Unqualified, and just to see it's saying how God uses broken people to do big things. So that's dealing with like inadequacies and stuff like that. So my expectation for the substance of the book was major, and honestly had nothing to do with Stephen Furtick as much as it probably did for you.
My expectation of the book was like sky high. I had watched tons of Stephen Furtick sermons. I had heard like little Instagram clips, so I already knew, like, man, if this is how you preach, then you gotta like snap when you write a book. And then when he explained it and he talked about like judgment and all that kind of stuff, and being unqualified, and I know at times and points I felt unqualified. It's like, oh man, I've done this, I've lived through this, I've made these decisions and these choices. I can't be qualified for God to do anything. But when I read the book and I heard like what he was going to be talking about from the message, I was like, wow, well, I gotta pick this up, because it's literally speaking to the season of my life that I'm in right now. This is like where I'm living. I felt unqualified, so I needed to read the book.
Now let's give them the highlights, the lowlights, and the takeaways. The one major highlight that stuck out probably to both of us, and that he hits from the gate, is it's called the third word. Using your third word. A lot of people would know this because we do it all the time. When you're talking about yourself, you say, I am strong, I am weak, I am depressed, I am great, I am successful, fabulous, so on and so forth. What Stephen Furtick wanted to address was the fact that we have to be intentional with our third words that we speak about ourselves. We already know that our words have power. We already know death and life and death
Is it empowered?
I don't know why.
Not in the power to stutter. Tiny bit.
Or in the power of the tongue.
Yeah.
Again, being very, very intentional with how you consider yourself, how you view yourself. He has like a full, I want to say like 3 or 4 chapters that are on that segment, the power of the third word. So that was big for me. How about you?
One of the highlights was like his authenticity in the book. Just talking about, one of the things he says is that God can't bless you, you pretend to be, which I thought was dope, because a lot of times when you feel unqualified, you try to put on a mask. Really, you're broken. Really, you're not ready to, or you don't feel like you're worthy. You don't feel like God can still use you. Then he tells a story about Jacob in the Bible, and a lot of times when people look at Jacob in the Bible, they're like, oh, Jacob was this deceiver. He made all these mistakes. He did all this dumb stuff. But they never talk about how Jacob, like how God used Jacob in like a huge major way, and like a lot of things in the Bible wouldn't have happened if not for Jacob.
Right.
And they quote Jacob a lot, like, I won't let you go until you bless me. Like Jacob said like a lot of these things, but all people focus on when they preach about him were like the negative aspects. So I thought that was like a major highlight for me. Another one was that God isn't hindered by your failures or your limitations. So a lot of times you think, oh, I failed, I messed up, I lived this crazy life, I made these major mistakes. In spite of that, God isn't limited to that. A lot of times people will limit you by what you've done or not done, but God isn't. Right. So those were like major highlights and takeaways for me.
Another thing that they talked about was, again, within the third words, understanding how to, he wanted you to speak against like the negative thinking. So the one thing that truly stuck out to me was with failure. One, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a failure because you failed to do something, whether it be a situation, an event, whatever. But he said that the best way to counteract that is to say, I am growing. Because you can grow from your failures. So that was a big one, to say like, I am growing.
Any lowlights?
Lowlights.
Really?
I don't think there were too many lowlights for me with this one. It was definitely a page turner. It had a lot of meat to it. There wasn't a lot of fluff. You took stuff away from it. Like, it wasn't like I just wasted my time reading this book. How about you?
I didn't really have any lowlights. The book could have been longer, maybe. The book mirrored his sermon. Like, when he preaches, he breaks it down. He explains it. There are funny parts. There are random things that you're like, well, why would he? And then he ties it all together. So you all that was like displayed in the book, and I thought that was really dope, because sometimes you can have like this high expectation when you hear somebody preach. Like, everybody who preaches great doesn't always write a great book.
Right.
And going through some of these books, like, we found that out.
Mm-hmm.
Or some people who preach, who you might not think are the best preachers, write an amazing book.
Sure.
So
Very true.
I thought that was what was really dope, is that he was consistent. He was very, 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 very consistent. And then he shared like personal experiences about things he went through and he lived through in areas that he felt unqualified. Like, he went back to his childhood and those kind of things. So I thought that was dope.
This book is definitely for any individual who is dealing with like an identity crisis, trying to figure out what your purpose is, who you are. Mm-hmm. And I can't speak for everybody, but I can definitely speak for myself, and having those questions like, who am I really? Like, what's my purpose in life?
Yeah.
Like, really trying to hone in on your identity. It's easy to read. It's a good page turner.
Yeah.
It's not like, I don't know, complex in the slightest. It's just straight into the point.
Are those your takeaways?
Yeah. Those are mine. What are yours?
Yeah, my takeaways are that this book is for people who, honestly, for me, for people who felt rejected, for people who felt judged, for people who felt like God couldn't use them because of their mistakes. This book like affirmed a lot of things for me. And kind of jumping back to a previous episode that we did, which was the 5 love languages. One of my main love languages is words of affirmation. So this book affirmed me in a way. Just like reading through it was like, wow, I didn't know Stephen Furtick struggled through this, or wow, I didn't know the Word of God said this about these topics. And it really brought like honestly like healing in certain areas, because it's like you feel unworthy, you feel, because you messed up or screwed up in certain areas, you feel like, well, that's just done. Like, people write you off, but God never writes you off.
Right. So let's jump into the rating system.
Let's get it.
Get out of here.
You know, nobody want to see your little ratings. 1, 2, 3.
Ooh. Is this your first change of life?
First 5. I do get 5s. When you deserve it, I do get 5s. Let's get into why you chose what you chose.
Okay, well, I chose Lucked Up because, again, I was telling you guys, my expectation of the substance was major. And it was good, and I was like, okay, Steven, I see you. You preaching.
Right.
It was good.
You
You want to hold my page? Oh. Go ahead, it's yours.
You right, facts. I gave it a 5 because it spoke to where I was at the time. I felt unqualified. I felt judged. I felt rejected. I felt like it was too much. And God was like, look, bro, you're going to have to be over there, sit in the back. But he was like, nah, that's not how I look at you. That's not how I view you. You aren't your past. You aren't your mistakes. You aren't those things that make you feel unqualified. And the people who said that, they need me just as much as you do. So they can go that way with it. And then it just opened my eyes. It was like, well, if I felt like this, how many other people have felt like this? Mm-hmm. So I feel like it changed my life because it made me stronger.
Really think about it. If you never went through the stuff that you went through,
mm-hmm.
then you wouldn't be able to speak to people who are going through it,
right,
or need help,
right,
or assistance talking about it. So a lot of times we need to remember that our life isn't for us.
It's bigger than you.
It's way, way bigger than you. So when you go through things or have been through things, that's why telling your testimony and sharing the things that you've been through, the trials and the hardships and what you've struggled with, because somebody in this world is probably struggling with what you've already overcome and don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Or feel like there's no hope, or this is just it. This is my life. This is what I'm going to struggle with for the rest of my life. There's no getting out of it. You're now qualified to speak to somebody that, like, he'll be able to speak and witness to someone that I'm not, because he's been through something different than I've been through, and vice versa.
And not only are you now qualified, you were always qualified. People try to put you in a box and say, oh, you can't do this, oh, you can't do that. Or even if you look at it from a work standpoint, if you have a certain job or a really good job, people say, they'll put you in a box and say, well, you have this, so this is what you should do, this is where I'm going to put you. Or you can't pursue this dream, or you can't pursue that dream. Or, oh, you're a teacher, well, if you're a teacher, you can't do this and this and this. Well, how?
Right.
How could you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think not only are you qualified for God to use you, but you're qualified to chase your goals, chase your dreams, you know what I mean, pursue your purpose. Because God has you here to do more than just what you do 9 to 5. And that's not even who you are. It's what you do.
I'm telling y'all, this book was pretty good.
You gotta pick it up. And then obviously watch, pick up an Elevation Church worship CD. But then just hear some of the messages. I mean, it's really dope stuff. It's really life-changing stuff. So, and
now stuff for today.
Yeah.
We have given you guys everything we have for Unqualified by Stephen Furtick. So
what up?
Definitely pick that up. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
In addition to, which we haven't told you guys, and this would be the first, if there is a book that you think that we should review, please let us know. Our email address is at the bottom of the video, so go ahead and send us that information that's requested, in addition to one of the 5 topics or 5 categories that it falls under, that you believe it falls under, and just let us know, because we're definitely down for new books that we haven't heard of.
Yeah, in the first video, the intro video, so go all the way back to the beginning, list the 5 categories for if you want to submit your book that has to fall into one of those 5 categories.
Right. Good.
If we read your book and we give you a 1, which is dry, or we give you a 2 or a 3, don't get an attitude. It's just my opinion. Right or wrong, it's just how we feeling at the time.
But we will definitely give it a try.
We gotta be bluntly honest with you about your book. Don't judge us.
Oh my goodness.
That's like my second don't judge me plug.
I'm just saying, like,
I need a t-shirt.
Oh goodness. So you guys, the next book up is, can I get a drum? God's Creative Power for Finances. Boom. We told y'all we was going to dive into finances. So if y'all looking for some good word on finances, which, I mean, that should be like everybody except like
everybody. Yeah, get your money right.
Right.
Yeah.
Secure the bag.
Secure the bag.
This is a secure the bag. So definitely stay tuned for the next episode while we dive into that. What?
Every time you say it, I hear Nate Dogg.
All right, you guys. We'll see you next time.
I'm Kyle Alexander.
And I'm Michelle Lee.
All right, y'all. Peace.